Greetings, one and all. This is me, Kat, aka Black Moon Rose 13 at DeviantArt, Tumblr, YouTube, Comic Vine, a few other places. Here to do something a wee bit different. I received the message on YouTube from, I hope you don't mind me saying your name, Kryptonian Sky, around 2 hours ago. Sorry if the sync is messed up. I'm trying some new things to make better audio quality while recording and all that. So anyway, from Kryptonian Sky, the person writes, hello, I absolutely love this. This was from my Doctor Who speed paint, by the way. Links in the description. No links. They go, hello, I absolutely love this. I was wondering, I've been starting to do digital arts myself. How are you able to do shading so easily? Oh, I'm going to answer each one a little bit at a time. I struggle a lot with working how shading is supposed to be, and all those lines you seem to use during it, I don't really understand how you went over the main lines with a color and it's sort of blended, if that makes any sense. If you ever make a tutorial how to color the tools you're using, I would find that very helpful. I know that everyone has their own method and style, but I'm a little confused about which tools you use for certain parts and so on. Anyway, I love all your colorings. I will definitely check out some more of your videos. Oh, I have super fans. I have fans. Hi. I love you all. Have I told you that recently? I love all of you. You are wonderful people, and I am glad you have stayed through all of my ups and downs. Anyway, so, I have been asked a few times, multiple times, my technique and what I do, and they say I'm a great colorist, and then my little ego gets stroked, and then I see other people's artwork, and then my ego goes and gets deflated a little. But, everyone has to start somewhere, right? Okay. For program, I use Photoshop CS5. I got it as a present from a friend. I had a little tickle in my throat. She lied. Anyway, and as for how I've done shading, it's oh god, if you just look through my DeviantArt page, you're gonna actually see my progress, which is nice. It's years and it's tons of practice and tons of tutorials. But let's before we get to the shading part, I made a random circle. I'm gonna show you guys how I do what I do. Okay? This is technically the behind the scenes stuff that I don't post as part of the speed paint to make your speed paints a little bit more enjoyable, because trust me, watching me shade is very boring. Actually, I'll explain later. Okay, first off, here's our line art. A random circle. Thank you. It's a random circle. It was the only thing I could think of, okay? This is kind of sort of impromptu, okay? And I didn't want to use some line art and have to go through some permission crap and, well, I technically can do that with some of them, but I wanted to do something simple, and this is impromptu, and I wanted to do it, okay? Sorry. Okay, this is our line art. Say hello. Hello. Now what you do first is you set the image to grayscale. Okay, this is going to be weird. I'm going to go as slow as I can. Okay, when I first learned how to do this, I would do it super fast, and then I learned how to do it and set into Photoshop actions, and I could make my Photoshop actions readily available, but I'm lazy right now. But anyway, this is how you do it. I will try to be as slow as possible. I have been known whenever I'm having to teach something, I go too quickly. Anytime I had to do any of those presentations in high school and tech school. Anyway, first you set your image to grayscale. Yes, you discard the information. I know I should remove that thing, but I never do. Then you make a second layer. You put it below your line layer. Is everyone with me so far? Because I am worried that you guys aren't going to be with me. If all else fails, you can just go back. Then what you do is you make sure you have your color set to the black and white default, and then Control Delete, and you'll have white on the bottom, like that. See? Okay. Then you go to here. Then you go to channels. I have never done a tutorial. Can you tell? No, I've done. Then you see this weird little circular thing. You might not be able to see it because my videos are rendered in a. It's this. Okay, it looks like a circle, but it's made out of dots. Kind of like. Well, actually. Kind of like that. Is that going to pick up in the video? I've been having hits and misses with that. Anyway, what you do is you click that. Boop. Alright? Now that has selected all of the white, I think. Yeah. At least that's what I remember from the tutorial, because I learned this from a tutorial I found years ago a few years ago on DeviantArt, and sadly that person has deleted their account, but I still have their tutorial, and actually due to me using the action so much, I couldn't actually remember how to do it off the top of my head, so I had to relook it, and I was so thankful I kept the tutorial, because then I would have been like, oh crap. Anyway, and then when you're done with that, you hit delete. Looks like nothing's there. But if you actually look, I did something wrong. Live, my friend, live. Okay, click that. Hit that. Delete. What am I doing wrong? Okay, something I'm doing wrong, because all you usually have to do is hit delete, and I wasn't hitting delete hard enough. Okay, mechanical keyboard, be a pain in my tushy. Or I was hitting the wrong button again. Okay, slight technical difficulties, but anyway, as you can clearly see, the line is gone. I'll show you again, okay? I'll do it again. Oh yeah, I did not hit delete. Okay, fine. Anyway, what you do, I'll do it again. Channels. Hit the weird little button. It's not the quick max. It's not the new one or the quick max. It's the one right beside it. The weird little circular thing which says load channel as selection. Thank you for popping up. You hit that. Then you hit delete. And then, although it looks like nothing has happened, see? No lines. Okay, now we get to the other part. Now, I like to label my layers. That's lines. This would be background. And for me, this is a... Oh, right. Genius, you're still in grayscale. Now remember, get out of grayscale mode and go into RBG. Don't merge. Don't merge. Don't merge. Hit don't merge. If you hit merge, then you're going to have to do the grayscale thing all over again. Remember, hit don't merge. Anyway. And then you do that. And then this is what I do. I like to set mine from white to a grayish tone, like around here-ish. -40. For those who are wondering how do I pop up a hue saturation, what you hit Control U, and there's also, I think, somewhere in the layer, I will check in a second. Then you set it down to that, and if I'm correct, where is it? Oh, don't tell me I'm so used to it. I don't know my own Photoshop setup anymore. I don't know Photoshop setup anymore because I'm so used to using shortcuts. It's Control and U. Just Control U, and that controls hue and saturation. I'm not the best person to go to for tutorials because I know all the shortcuts off the top of my head, and it's like, but this is all from years and years of working with Photoshop for over 5-6 years now. Sorry. I've been using Photoshop. Now, for me, I layer my layers, I lock my layers, and then what I like to do is I make a group. You hit this little button right here, create a new group. Okay? I'm gonna get into the difficult stuff, and there's a reason why I'm using a circle, because it's the simplest thing I could shade. Then what I do is I do 2 layers, right? Layer this one shading, or shade, this one light, and then I have them both set, oh right, you can't do that. You have them both set to soft light. And this is where a bunch of artists are going to yell at me and say, that's not the best way to do the shading, blah, 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 blah. I know, this is my way. They requested for my technique, and if, by chance you want to, for technique, my technique is from learning and growing and reading all these tutorials and watching all these tutorials. I can remember a few bad ones from back in my day. Ooh, I could list a few bad ones from back in the day. But the person who's curious about my technique, there are many others there. Don't just stick to mine. There are like tons others. There are a ton others. Just, research is important. Now, you're going to actually see my awful shading because I have been told my sphere shading is not the greatest on the planet. I sometimes use control. Okay, now, you set them both to soft light. Sorry if this is rambling, but I'm trying to express. Now for shade, make sure your colors are all on default. Oops, that's cropping. We're not doing that. That's next week. And what I do is I like to do it by hand like this. And people, remember. What's going on? Oh yeah. I forgot about that. There's sometimes a little teeny tiny issue if you do it that technique. So sometimes you gotta... Alright. Oh yeah, I remember that. Now I remembered something. Yeah. Control D. What am I doing wrong? Okay, Photoshop's liking to be a bitch today. Okay. Oh, also remember, sometimes your image will show up lighter than I forgot. I forgot to mention something. My steps. Ah! I'm sorry. Okay. Sometimes it has been known to happen that sometimes the lines will come up lighter than they should be and everything. So what you gotta do is you gotta do some brightness contrast adjustment weapons and make them darker. You know, you gotta do some brightness contrast adjust things. Adjust to your own will, whatever is whatever you think is best. I forgot to include that. It does happen, and I forgot to include that. Does this tell you how much I have been reliable on using actions now? I mean, I can do it, but I don't really tutorialize. It's all just in my head. But I'm trying to help a fellow artist. I told myself I would do a good deed today. Anyway, what you gotta do is you gotta adjust your brightness and contrast. What you do is you go into image, adjustments, brightness contrast, voila, my nose itches, and just adjust to what you see fit. And then that's fixed. Anyway, my control key's been a little sticky today. Well, not sticky, just finicky. I just found out it can pop out easily. Anyway, as for the shading, take two. For me, I like to do a little hand thing like this. This is a simplistic shading. I am very more... Okay, I'm really this lazy when I'm actually doing it. Now, for all those who wonder about the shading thing, for me, I'm going to tell you the same damn thing. The same thing that many artists told me at MegaCon when I went to MegaCon earlier this year and got a lot of advice from a lot of other artists and been told I was a fellow artist and my ego was stroked a lot. Anyway, look at references. It is not shameful to do references. Use references. I have done it tons of times. If by chance the line art that I am coloring has been line art, pencils, inks, whatever, has been colored before, I like to go and, if someone else has colored it, I sometimes do find it, look at it, use it as a reference point to how to shade. That's what I use. I use references a lot for shading and references. There's nothing wrong with references. Ignore the naysayers. The naysayers who think references are just lazy and you need to learn. Referencing is good. Tracing, on the other hand, is bad. Remember that. Reference, good. Tracing, bad. Always remember that. Using references is fine. Using stock photos for reference, fine. Tracing someone else's art without their permission, not fine. We all under that? There was recently a tracing reference debate happening on Tumblr. That's why I'm talking about this right now. Well, not recently. A while back. Whatever. Anyway, I hope you didn't hear my clapping. Now, for me, it's just like, you gotta use references. I use references. I still use references to this day. Every artist uses references. Do not be ashamed to use references. Okay, now up to the shading part. Now for me, I like to do it like this, by hand. I sometimes like to do it by hand. Or, if you want to get real technical, although I have issues using this, you can hit P, and use the pen tool. And you're going to go like that. And if you're hearing noise in the background, I am sorry. And then what you do is you hit A. Okay, you hit A, you do that. Sorry if I'm not the best. Okay, and then you just delete. Now, since this is a circle, it's going to be a lot simpler. Delete. And then what you do is you do like that. Remember, people, I'm not the greatest artist on the planet. If I was, I'd be getting paid. Now, you notice how it's not all perfect on the side. All that I care about, I'm using my hands. I gotta quit using my hands because no one's filming this. There is no camera. As I wave my arms like a manic woman. For me, I don't care about, as long as it's the part that I need to get shaded. Like, since this is a circle, all I care about is the inside of the circle. The outside of the circle can bunk all because this is a tutorial and I'm lazy. And then what you do is you right click, ambidextry, not great. Right click, fill path, foreground color, hit enter. Now see, since it's set to, my brain was thinking it was selected. As you can see, it makes that. That's what you can do. You can use pen tool. I use it by hand. It just depends on my situation and how lazy I feel. As weird as this sounds, I think pen tool is more of a you pay attention kind of thing while using the mouse. Yes, mouse. People, I do not own a tablet. I do not have the money to afford a tablet. I have been using a mouse for my art skills. People are still shocked about that to this day. Do not know why. Now you do lighting. You turn that to X. See, I like to do it like this because I like the mouse. I like the mouse. So use the mouse like this. I'm sorry if I'm not doing the best of explanations. God, I'm so nervous because someone's gonna be using this advice. And then you do it like that. Actually, lasso tool cheat. Move that there. And then you have all your highlights separated in one folder and your shades separated in another folder. This is how I do it. This is not the set in stone way. There are better techniques out there. I'm just too lazy to do them. There's massive laziness involved with me sometimes. I will admit to it. Anyway. Now for the shading, if this is a speed paint and everything, I have them all set up in a folder. I turn off I hit the little I button and I turn it off. And then there's no lines. Great for when you're coloring, a little less distracting. Now, I do all of that crap before I film it, because doing all the shading takes a long time. Setting up my shades and highlights takes a long freaking time, and I am and it's like, I will lose my patience and everything, so I do everything on a separate day, sometimes the day before, sometimes a couple of hours before. I promise to do my live streams, although nowadays, since no one really watches my live streams, I don't get really big crap, and also my recording device, who cares? Anyway, so I do all that beforehand, and then when I'm ready, I hit record, and then we start the coloring, and then we watch. Although there are actually a couple of pictures I have actually done where the shading is showed. That's how I do it. I set everything up beforehand because I'm lazy. And now we get to the coloring part. Alright. You pick then what you do, you separate the group, you put it like that. Some people I sometimes lock it. I don't lock it because sometimes I forget to unlock it. So what I do now is I hit new layer, then I pick a color. What are we feeling today? Okay. Sometimes for coloring, sometimes I either A, have a ton of references that I use, or a palette, or I just pick some random colors and just go with it. It depends for me, actually. But, yeah, now we get to the coloring. Now, there is this. Ugh, I hate that color. Yeah, too bright, too bright. Let's do something a little different. Okay. Actually, I should do something that contrasts with the gray background because you guys have to see the stinking image. Seafoam green. It's close enough to seafoam green. Now, there is two ways to color. There's my way, which I consider actual coloring, which I actually do for speed paints. Boop. There's that technique. It's a fun technique. Or there's the I am lazy and have a large area and I do not want to have to deal with bullcrap. Modify, expand, 2 pixels, 3 pixels, depending on how thick the lines are of the actual image, and do that. I don't use Paint Bucket. Okay, sometimes I use Paint Bucket for the backgrounds, I will admit to that. But I don't use Paint Bucket because I don't know if it's just me, or my monitor settings, or me, more likely me, but if I use Paint Bucket, this stupid little Paint Bucket, oh, remember, use brush. Whenever I use Paint Bucket, the color I actually use is actually slightly darker or lighter than the actual color that I'm actually wanting. Paint Bucket's been doing that. I don't know if there's a Paint Bucket setting on that. If someone can give me some advice on that, that would be great. Or if it's just me and I'm just going loopy, just tell me. But, okay, and but I don't really use Paint Bucket except for backgrounds. Anyway, or I use gradients, and I am very guilty of using gradients as of late. I'm lazy and I don't like doing sunsets. I've been doing a lot of sunsets. I've noticed that lately. I've been using gradients a lot in backgrounds, and I have been told don't rely on gradients, and now I'm relying on them. Oops. But I'm not using them for actual coloring. That don't count. Okay, anyway, there's the wand one, which that technique, it's great for large areas sometimes. It depends on who's drawing the picture, because if the person is a very sketchy artist, you know, it's it's complicated. I wouldn't suggest doing that unless you know that the lines are like pure clean and it was all done from a PMG picture and they're really clean. So I wouldn't suggest the wand technique. Okay? Just suggesting. Now, nose itching. There's also that, or you could also use the pen tool. Yeah, I'll just do this on a separate layer. Use the pen tool. You go around the object, around the area which you're going to be coloring, and then you adjust for the pen tool. It's just like that shading minute before, and then you adjust where you need adjusting to keep it within the section. Blah blah blah. See, this is where I'm losing my patience because tutorials are a really fun idea, and I thought let's help the world, but then I'm like, ugh. Anyway, and then you just adjust as needed. And sometimes it's a catch-22 with this thing. I do use this technique when I'm not doing speed paints. I do use this technique. I just don't use it during speed paints because I feel like speed painting involves brush, paint, make pretty, make pretty, make pretty. Oops. This is a great technique if you're wanting to get stuff done quicker. It is a great technique. A friend of mine taught me how to do this actually after I did a Sailor Moon picture, actually, because I was complaining it took me so freaking long, and they said, oh well, I know this way you can actually make it easier and make it not as long, and it's a great technique, and I do use it on occasion, and it has been used on my speed paints, but I just don't use, but I do use it off camera, just not on camera. I don't know why, I just do, because watching that over and over again does get boring to me. Now anyway, then you hit fill path, and you do that, foreground color, whatever color you're choosing, and then voila, you get it filled in. Doesn't matter how it's done, as long as it's done, right? Anyway. Or you can make it select and then you paint it in yourself. And then, you make adjustments. Now for the shading. Now, how I do it, which some people can consider lazy, like I've mentioned, I keep them all in a folder. What I do is I take the light and I take the shade, I duplicate it, like that. Just hit duplicate layers, and then you gotta get out of the folder. Now when it's the first layer, it's like a pain in the butt, so you gotta go under the layer. That's for me at least. And then what I hit is, I've set it to Control G, because that's what it used to be on Photoshop 7, which is when I started coloring. But if I remember correctly, do I remember how to do this? Oh yeah. Group? Nope, that's not it. Oh shit, I just discovered my Control key, which I use a whole lot, is kind of popping off now, so it's like, oh shit! Okay, do I remember how to do this normally? I have it set to Control G. I don't think it's set to Control G normally. Oh shite! I didn't think about this. Shit. Hold on. Create clipping mask? Oh yeah, there it is. I didn't remember what, I also can't remember. It's a create clipping mask. For those who didn't know that, I did not know that was the term. So, layer, I'm so sorry. I did not think about this. Because I'm just, okay. Oh, yeah. It's create clipping mask. Or as I have it set, Control G. Control key, you will stay put right now. Ugh. I'm sorry. I have it set to Control G. Now, again, behold my lazy coloring technique. I like to go into filter, blur, Gaussian. It's set really high because I was doing a big picture earlier. Last time I was working on this. And then I adjust it to what my personal preference, to what I think would be appropriate for the image. So that's all up to you. Up to the artist on that department. What am I feeling? Let's do unlucky number 13. And then you adjust as such. And then for light, Control F makes you do it again. Now, sometimes you gotta do it more than once. You gotta do the shade and then you gotta do the shade of the layer again. Sometimes. Not all the time. Again, that's up to the artist's opinion. And now you can actually see the reason why I like to keep a lot of edge on the outside, because then you have this weird light little effect here, and then you gotta do some adjustments, and then you have to, wrong button. You gotta do a little adjusting, which I don't like doing. It's a pain in the butt. There's another technique you can do, which is called delete that layer. Reduplicate that layer. Go like that. Go like that. And just Sorry. Can I point out I'm not the best with tutorials? And then you just do the adjustments as so. And then that's how you do it. Now to the one part that I know the person's curious about. You do a layer, control gauge again, which is clipping mask. I did not remember the term. I couldn't remember how to do it. I thought it was grouping. I'm like, no, that's not the term. Now, okay, here's a few things you need to know about this little technique. Okay, I did not know what this was originally called. I just used to color over lines. But apparently this technique I'm using is called color holding, which, according to a book I've recently read on how to color comics, is the sign of an amateur colorist if they rely on color holding. If they rely on color holding, it kind of sort of is the sign of an amateur artist. The guy who wrote this book is pretty big in the comic coloring world, so you should take his words to light. But personally, I like color holding. I think it makes it a little bit nicer. Now, I mean, there are images I won't color hold. I have done images that don't have color holding, but I just prefer color holding. And, I mean, the sample they used of color holding, there were some good examples, and the example of bad color holding, I don't technically do it. I do the images do the color holding a lot darker. Now, what I do for color holding, for those who don't know, eyedrop, if you have brush and you don't know how to get the eyedrop, all you have to do is hit Alt, and remember to move the mouse or just click. Then you just collect the color. Now, what I do is I try to find the darkest shading of the actual thing that has been shaded. Oh, forgot something. I remembered something. Sometimes I like to adjust the lighting to whatever, because sometimes the light is a little too much. So I like to adjust it to whatever I think is appropriate. Sometimes I go 50%, sometimes I go 75. Today I will go 80. I haven't gone 80 in a while. Now what I do is I pick the darkest shading of the color that I am wanting to do the color holding on. I did not know it was called color holding. And then what I do is I paint like I am normally. Just paint the line of that color. That area of the thing. And this is where I wish I did multiple things of something interlocking, and then I show how to adjust and everything. Blah, blah, blah. First tutorial. Anyway. And then I color like so. Now, as you can see, it does like that. And then what I like to do, this is what I do. I hit Control U, yet again. And I like to do lighting effects. Now, I used to do it, basically, it would be, for example, -60 and then +60 and do it like that. I've discovered that might be a little too much. So so I do like half of the so what I do is I make the lightness negative whatever thing, and then for the saturation I do a positive of half that number. So for example, if I do the lightness at -60, sorry, if I do the lightness at, oh shit, okay, hold on. Sometimes Photoshop likes to play screwy McScrewy. For example, if I do it at -60, I do it at +30. And I do it at half of the negative. You guys understand that, right? It's half of the number you do for lightness. So if you do -50, you would do +25. That's how I've been doing it as of late. I think it makes a better adjustment. Someone's messaging me. I'm trying to work. And that's how I like to do it. Personal opinion. And now what you do is, if you're making a background, you do the background as such and everything. But that's how basically how I do it. Now remember, this is what my technique. My technique might not be deemed the best. It could be deemed some of the worst. At least I'm practicing, and I'm trying to help this person. Now, person who's been asking these questions, thank you for stroking my ego, by the way. Remember, find other tutorials out there. Don't just rely on one person. There are tons of tutorials on DeviantArt and Tumblr. You can look around there. I know there's a bunch there because I've been actually reading a few of those. There could be some more tutorials on YouTube, and I haven't looked for those either, because I have issues when I have to read instructions. If someone's talking to me, I have issues paying attention. I have to read it. There could also be things in tutor. And don't be afraid of using references. That's how I've gotten to where I kind of am today. If you actually look at all my stuff, I have progressed a lot since the early years. I used to not even shade at all, and then I did this weird thing thinking if I put little darker versions of lines over lines, it counts as shading, and then I did pillow shading, and I still kind of do pillow shading to this day, but it's a more advanced pillow shading to me. And although sometimes the image doesn't look as, it could look better, I will admit to that. But, and when you print it out, there are some issues. I gotta make them more print worthy. I know. But, remember, references are your friends. References are good. References are great. Tracing is bad. Just remember that. Tracing and copying exactly is bad. Referencing is good. Just remember that. References are really good. They're an artist's best friend. Go out there, look for tutorials. I should really practice and study some more myself. And basically, that's it. Try your darndest and hope to God it's the best. And practice, show, ask for advice, like you did with me. Just please don't make me critique you because I'm one of those two niceys people. I hope this tutorial actually helps you understand the complex art that is coloring. I don't have a sound editor. Work with me here. It's supposed to sound like lightning. I'm lame. But, I hope this tutorial helps you, and I hope you understand what I went through. I hope I explained it really well. I have been known to not be able to explain crap very well while we stare at this big green dot. Oh, death. And, oh, God. I mean, this is how I do it, and it is not the best on the planet. Mine is a very soft shading technique, and it's very airbrush heavy, although I don't usually airbrush. And, that's how I do it. I might do actually a better tutorial of this later on in my life, hopefully. And I hope you understand. This is how I do it. Remember, there are better people out there. See how low my confidence is when it comes to my own art. Sorry, there was something on my mic. So that's how I do it. I hope you enjoy this, and I hope you took some notes. I hope I somehow helped you. I hope. But thank you for watching, and bye-bye.